Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's the podcast where you find new friends and new music. And this week I am joined by a native of Lake City, Florida, who recently shared his desire to rule the world with his friends. I'm talking about Adam Sanders. Adam, man, thank you for jumping on here with me.
Absolutely, Ty. Thanks for having me.
Oh, definitely. And before we get too far into it, let's kind of give everybody a background of where you came from. What's the Adam Sanders story? Give us like the Wikipedia of how you got into music.
Well, I always like to say that music was just sort of born in me. I didn't really pick music. Music picked me. I literally started singing when I was like 3 years old, and my whole family is musically inclined, and so it's literally what I wanted to do from, very, very early on. I really had no aspirations to go to college or anything, and so I pretty much just kind of did music all through my school years, and I graduated high school 2007 and made the move to Nashville in 2009. I was 21 and, man, just kind of hit the ground running, and I was there for 2 years and started writing in town and just kind of finding my group of guys. And after 2 years, I signed a publishing deal and was very, very fortunate to start to have some success in the songwriting world, and all of that spilled over into a couple number ones, and here we are now. So it's been something that's been a dream of mine since day one, literally.
I feel like it's a little bit easier when you know the whole time that this is what you want to do for a living versus like picking up a guitar the first year of college and then being like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't do the college thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of you hear a lot of those stories a lot of times where, and a lot of my buddies, kind of say, man, I didn't really have any aspirations, and then I, started playing guitar in college, and kind of started writing songs to get the girl and that sort of stuff. But for me, it's just a little bit different. But yeah, I can honestly say, I have no idea on earth what I would do if I wasn't in music. I mean, it's just what I've always just gravitated towards, and it doesn't feel like work. I mean, as hard as I work, it's something that I just truly passionately love, and so I'm sort of programmed to be this way.
Well, and was your family supportive of it? I mean, were your parents always like they knew that this is what you wanted to do and they were supportive as you were growing up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they knew, just as a very early age of mine, I was literally in every talent show that you could enter in the fairs, the local fairs back home, and I played all the, little town festivals and all that kind of stuff, and talent shows, and so yeah, I mean, they were very supportive, and I think it was a situation where they were just like, hey, if this is something you want to do, then, you're going to have to go after it with everything you've got. And I never really took any guitar lessons or any vocal lessons or anything. It was just something that was just sort of self-taught. And I just feel like through the years, man, I've come a long, long way. I was never, ever the best singer or the best guitar player or any of that, but it's just, just years and years and years of woodshedding it, just kind of has gotten me where I am today.
Well, and I feel like that's important, especially if it's something that you knew, growing up, that being able to put in those hours from the ages of like 10 to 20, I feel like pay off maybe a little bit more than the hours that somebody else puts in from 20 to 30, just because there's not a whole lot of all that other responsibility. You kind of work out the kinks in that age, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's just, like I said, I never had any other aspirations. I grew up playing a few sports, but I knew that, it's just sort of a hobby. Nothing got my attention like playing and singing and just kind of visualizing what my, career was going to look like one day. And I used to sit and watch all the award shows, and I'd go in my room and I would practice, acceptance speeches for winning Entertainer of the Year and, all this different stuff. And so, man, I just, like I said, the bug got me very early and, on. And, like I said, it was just something that I just genuinely love.
So do you remember the first time that you got up on stage? I mean, obviously you were doing the talent shows and all of that, but do you remember the first time, like your first real gig? Maybe not the talent shows,
yeah,
but the first real gig.
So I have pictures of it. I was so young that I don't really vividly remember it. I remember just very small amounts of it, but I'll tell you this: it was at a festival in White Springs, Florida, which is where I lived at the time, and I remember playing, and Alan Jackson was my childhood hero growing up, and so I literally wanted to sing only his songs and, dress just like him. And I remember I sang 2 songs that day, and I had this guitar that, may have had 1 string on it, and I'm just kind of playing with it. I'm probably 3 years old. And as soon as I finished the song, I take off my hat and I start yelling, "Money, money, money." And for whatever reason, people started walking up and putting like dollar bills and $5 bills in my hat. And I have pictures of my hat, my cowboy hat, like overflowing with all these dollar bills and fives that people had gave me. So I found out, I guess, pretty quick that you could make a living, off of it. And, but yeah, that was my very first show that I ever did, and I was probably like 3 years old, and made a good little bit of money off of that also.
Man, that is a true hustle mentality when you can get up there that young and be like, okay, I just played you music, now put some money in the hat.
Hey, I literally used to use it to get out of trouble in school all the time too. I'd go to the principal's office, and my principal would be like, hey, he'd make me think he's going to call my, parents or whatever. And I was never a bad kid in school. I was just always very talkative and just, sort of life of the party, and just, didn't want to, pay attention to schoolwork. I just wanted to kind of hang out and, sing to people. And he used to say, all right, if you'll sing me a song, I'll let you go and we won't tell anybody about it. So I'd start singing, or my teachers would give me $5 to sing. And so, yeah, I definitely used that card a lot growing up.
That's fantastic. So then you graduate high school in 2007, moved down to Nashville. When you made that move to Nashville, what was the goal then? Was it to be a songwriter, or was it to be a solo artist, or were you not sure, you just wanted to get out there?
No, I knew that I was moving to be an artist. And I'll never forget, so my uncle is the only other person in my family that took music as a profession. He is a steel guitar player and plays on all the albums and stuff, and he's played literally on everything from George Jones to Sam Hunt. And so I remember when I was like maybe 12 or 13 years old, he called my dad one day and he asked to speak to me, and he said, Adam, have you ever thought about writing songs? And at that age, I didn't really think about it, the process of writing it. And he said, well, all these songs that you're listening to, somebody had to write them. He said, you should look into writing songs. It could be your way into the business one day. And so I literally hung up the phone. The next day, me and my dad wrote my first song together. I started writing in high school and just really enjoyed the process of it. And so I moved to Nashville, and co-writing was such a big thing. And I found out pretty fast that I sort of looked at it as, okay, well, how can I break into this industry if I don't really have any strings attached or, anything? And I thought, okay, well, I've seen people sort of break through by the songwriter route as far as writing songs for other people, and then all of a sudden one day someone looks up and says, well, why don't this guy sing them? He's the one writing them. Or it was go on, American Idol or The Voice. And I just felt like, for me, that I feel like I had a pretty good leg up on the songwriting side of things. And so I just kind of took that as my route to get my foot in the door. And it's just so crazy that you fast forward, and my uncle was absolutely right. It was exactly how I was supposed to get into the business.
Well, and I mean, you did it in some pretty big ways. I mean, you've gotten some songs cut by some pretty big names out there in Nashville. One of them in particular sticks out to me specifically. It's Cole Swindell's Ain't Worth the Whiskey. That one hit country radio about the same time that I was starting to work in country radio and get those on-air shifts that I was able to intro songs. And that song, for whatever reason, it's always kind of stuck out to me as like the first big song that I was able to intro in country radio. So that, I mean, it's really cool that, that I get a chance to chat with you about it. But what was it that, how do you make those inroads from going from like a writer's round at somewhere on Broadway to having a number one song cut by a guy like Cole Swindell?
Man, it's it's so crazy. That song in particular, we had actually written that song. Cole and myself and our co-writer Josh Martin had written that song like 6 years before the song was ever released. None of us really had anything going on in music at the time. Cole's one of the very first people that I ever met when I moved to Nashville, and we became very good friends very early on. And he was out selling T-shirts for Luke, and we were writing, songs on the weekend, and he gets a publishing deal, and we go to write at his publishing office, and that was one of the songs that we had wrote, and that's one of the songs that got me my publishing deal. And then, it was on hold for so many artists, Montgomery Gentry, Easton Corbin. I think Luke Bryan had it on hold at one point, and it just never really landed anywhere. And we always sort of joked that we said, well, whoever gets a record deal first is going to put the song out, because we knew, how good the song was, or we felt like we did. And it turned out, it happened to be Cole. And it's just so crazy to look back after 6 years of people passing on the song and it not really landing anywhere. And then you sort of realize, well, it ended up where it was supposed to go, and so, it was such a big song for his career. And ironically enough, I'm on his bus right now, headed down to Georgia. We're going to write this weekend because all the shows and everything are canceled. And so he's been, a huge, huge part of my career, and someone that, I look up to and is a big supporter of mine. So Ain't Worth the Whiskey and Cole Swindell will always have a special place in my heart for sure.
Well, and I've got a couple of other things related to that, but you kind of touched on it with all of the coronavirus stuff, we'll call it, going on right now. How much has that affected you in terms of having to change your schedule around?
Well, at first I didn't really think it was going to, but literally by the day it's changing. I was supposed to play the SEC basketball tournament in Nashville this past Thursday for the fanfare, and they called us that morning and said, hey, the tournament's off, we're not playing it. And the next morning I was supposed to go in for a news interview, and I was supposed to play live on the air, and they canceled that. And co-writes now are getting canceled, and I think we're going to be shut down as far as like shows and that sort of stuff for probably on into May. And so literally Cole was in Georgia, and he just kind of called me this morning and said, hey, everything's shut down, you want to come down and write, and kind of use our time wisely. And so it's what we decided to do. So I mean, there's all in our business, we could sit back and play video games or, just kind of sit at the house. But we said, well, heck, why don't we use this wisely and try to write the next big song? So when we do get cranked back up and we can go tour again, we got some new material.
Well, and I feel like as bad as everything is and as cautious as everybody is, I feel like this next 2 weeks is going to be like an incubator period where we're going to get some of like the best art. It doesn't matter, what it is, music, comedy, whatever. We're going to get some of the best art that we've ever seen in the coming months, because guys like you have the opportunity to just hop on a bus, get down to Georgia, write with Cole Swindell, and then, just kind of button up and not have to worry about, hey, I've got to take off in a couple of hours to get to this show or to get wherever.
Yeah, I think, as bad as this whole thing sucks, and as bad as, we wish that we could go through or not have to go through this, it kind of, I've looked at it as a positive of like, okay, well, this is just a mandated reset, period for our enthusiasm in our careers and that sort of stuff, and so I think you're 100% right. I think when the artists go back on stage, I think they're going to be so much more fired up, to play shows, and may not quite take them, for granted, because you've got the next one that you're doing tomorrow. And same thing with writing. It's sort of a special time now where we don't really have nothing on our schedules really, as far as, travel wise go. And so I think you're right. And I'm excited to see what we come up with.
Well, and so to get back into kind of where we jumped off at, you went to Nashville, you've got some of these cuts by some bigger name artists, and then you fell into this group of, like, I don't want to say lesser known names, but names that were really kind of coming up at the same time that you were in Nashville, including the boys from Florida Georgia Line, Tyler and BK, Tyler Farr, Cole Swindell, obviously. How did you fall into that group? Was it a lot of getting to work with Cole, or was there other connections there?
Man, those days, it is so crazy to look back on. It was just fate, man. We used to do this thing called Saturday Song Day, and we would all get together over at Cole's house. And it's so crazy because I remember it like it was yesterday. And all of those names that you mentioned, Brian and Tyler and, Chase Rice and John Party and, Tyler Farr and all these people, me and Cole, we were all together on the weekends, and we would watch college football. And at the end of the night, we would start playing each other our demos that we had written throughout that week. And at this point in time, none of us really had anything going on. We weren't in the business really professionally. I think probably Brian and Tyler were the first two to sort of get a publishing deal, and then Cole gets a publishing deal, and they're kind of like taking, like planes getting ready to sort of take off, and it just kind of streamlined. And it's so crazy to think about back then when the talent was so concentrated, and to now see everyone's careers have mega careers. It was such a special thing. And I almost think it was a situation where, iron sharpens iron. And I think we all saw the talents in each other, and that's why we enjoyed hanging out with each other. And it was sort of this friendly competition when we would play each other our songs, and we championed each other. But it was also this thing of like, okay, when I show up to Saturday Song Day, I got to bring my A game, and I got to, this week I've got to write the best song I can write, because I know that Cole's going to come in with something great, or, or Chase or whatever. And so I really feel like, man, it made us all better. And I was always sort of like the little brother of the group. I like to say I was a couple of years younger than those guys, and had only been in town maybe a year or two less than all of them. But I'll never forget, I was writing one day with Chase and Brian Kelly, and we were writing a song, and we were in there, and I said a line or something in a song, and I remember Brian from Florida Georgia Line looks over at Chase and was like, "Who is this kid, and why is he in here with us again?" Like I felt like he got the fact of like, okay, this guy is good, and he's only been here, he's so green, and that was sort of a validation of like, all right, I can hang with these boys. And like I said, man, it's just so crazy to now look at all of our careers and to see what we've accomplished. Oh,
definitely. And I want to talk about how they influence your songwriting style in a little bit, but you were kind enough to share with us a couple of songs today. The first one's one that you put out last year. It's called Life I'm Living. Give us a story about how this one came about.
Man, I feel like there for a little while, I was sort of chasing the market in my own career. I think a lot of times, we just sort of see what is working, and we kind of gravitate towards that. And I felt like I had some success with songs that I'd put out, but I was starting to kind of feel like they were getting just further and further away from what my gut wanted to really release and sing and talk about. And there for a little while, I sort of ran from the fact of how country and that the way I grew up, and maybe the way that I sing, and just like naturally like more country style stuff and sort of 90s country. And so that was one of the songs that I just, when I feel like I needed to go and be more authentic to myself, and when I truly found out who I was meant to be as an artist, and what my whole thing was, I knew how to write stuff for Cole or Luke or Dirks, and I was still sort of searching what Adam Sanders wanted to say. And so that was one of the songs that, I felt like I had arrived at that point, and just kind of wrote it how I would have said it, and didn't worry about, well, is it going to work, or is it not, or, is people going to like it, or, whatever. And so it's one that I'm, super, super proud of, because it definitely gave me my own voice.
Here, let's let everybody take a listen to this one. It's called Life I'm Living by Adam Sanders.
I knew last night I should have never gone another round. Should have paid my tab, tipped my hat, and walked my ass out. You'd think I'd know better by now, but I'm laying in bed with my head going pound, pound. But hey, I don't know no other way. I keep that needle on red, I keep that country turned up, I keep that igloo cooler full of silver bullets in my truck. Keep these honky-tonkin' boots stomping on that floor until these honky-tonkin' boots can't stomp no more. Yeah, I hope the good Lord's still in the business of forgiving if I'm gonna get to heaven with this life I'm living. Better slow down your go-getter, but I told her my daddy didn't raise a no-quitter. So I keep my finger on that good time trigger, and on Friday night I pull it where the neon flickers. I keep that needle on red, I keep that country turned up, I keep that igloo cooler full of silver bullets in my truck. Keep these honky-tonkin' boots stomping on that floor until these honky-tonkin' boots can't stomp no more. Yeah, I hope the good Lord's still in the business of forgiving if I'm gonna get to honky-tonkin' boots, stomping on that floor until these honky-tonkin' boots can't stomp no more. Yeah, I hope the good Lord's still in the business of forgiving if I'm gonna get to heaven with this life I'm living. If I'm gonna get to heaven with this life I'm living.
And that one's called Life I'm Living by Adam Sanders, and the guitar pieces in that song are just so catchy. It gets caught in your head all the time if you listen to it. It just does.
Yeah, man, it's kind of got that. It's got a little bit of a '90s throwback to it. You know, it's a little bit of a honky tonk kind of feel.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good way to put it. And I want to shift gears a little bit now and talk about your songwriting. And one thing that I noticed is that you've got a pretty clear line in the sand in your sound. And we talked about it a little bit a few minutes ago. But it seems like right about the time that you put out your EP in 2018 that something kind of shifted. I mean, you had some really emotional songs like Thunder and I've Been Meaning to Call, which, by the way, makes me want to call my parents every single time I hear it, which I'm sure was the goal of that song. But
yep.
Like since 2008, your songs have sounded, or I'm sorry, since 2018, your songs have sounded a little bit more like the Life I'm Living, Adam Sanders kind of a style. And it sounds like that was a pretty conscious choice, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I feel like, you know, prior to that and all the releases that I put stuff out, it was just sort of like, well, it's just, you know, we were as in a grand scheme of things. I think we were in a time period where country music was sort of pop driven and been sort of leaning that way. And that was sort of what the market sort of wanted. And so I kind of just, you know, went that route and I kind of got to a spot where I was like, man, I just need to be who I am and let the industry come to me and be the most authentic person that I could possibly be through my music and, you know, just sing and write about things that I enjoy. And so you're right. Yeah, that was definitely, you know, the thing that, you know, sort of switched everything. And I feel like I started to go from a guy that could write good songs and, you know, had songs that, you know, were written for the people and, you know, or, oh yeah, that song was good. But I don't think now I'm starting to have consistency where, like you said, you hear a certain song and you're like, okay, that's an Adam Sanders song. Just like if someone hears a Jason Aldean song, they're going to say that's a Jason Aldean song, you know? And so I had to learn very fast that there was already a Luke Bryan and a Cole Swindell and a Dirk Bentley and a Jason Aldean, you know, but there's not an Adam Sanders yet. So I need to be Adam Sanders. And, you know, so that was what we did. And it's probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
Well, and when you're going along that route, I mean, you're actually sitting in the same room, not just as the guys that write songs for, you know, Luke Bryan and Cole Swindell, but with them themselves, and you're helping them write that song and craft that sound. When you're in a room like that and you're writing with them, is it to a point now where you can walk into a room and you know, okay, I'm going into a write today, and the songs that I'm going to write are songs for me versus going into the write and thinking, okay, I'm going to get this one cut?
You know, sometimes that's the case. You know, obviously, like this weekend, you know, as we go down, you know, we're obviously going to be trying to, you know, write for Cole's next record, and you know, that's the, you know, first and foremost. But a lot of times, I've always just tried to go in and write the best song that I could write that day, and just kind of let them fall where they fall. I always say, you know, these things sort of end up where they're supposed to. You know, like I said, you go back to Ain't Worth the Whiskey for an example, and that's, you know, for all those years it was passed on, and it was only meant for Cole Swindell. It wasn't meant for those other guys. My very first cut that I ever got was a Luke Bryan song called Out Like That on his Crash My Party album, and we originally started writing that song. We thought it was going to be a Keith Urban song, and turned out, you know, Luke loved it. So I think you just go in and try to write the best thing you can write that day and just, you know, let them fall where they fall.
Well, so, and when you start writing, are you one of those guys that comes in with a chunk of lyrics or a hook or a melody, or does it just kind of depend on what came to you before you walked into that room, or what came to you in the room?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a guy where I'm always keeping voice notes in my phone, or I have a notepad, you know, where I just keep titles or hooks or certain things, you know, that that I think could be a song. And so it really, every co-write, that's the beauty of co-writing. Every one of them is different every single time. There's never two that have been the same. And so sometimes I've come in with, hey, I got this cool melody, and we'll write this, or I've got this thought or this hook or whatever, or a lot of times I came in with nothing and just kind of we found it in the room, so it's just it's always a little different.
Well, and one song that I'm really curious about how it came out is your most recent single. It's called Ruled the World, and it's basically just a list of you and your friends and what you do if you ruled the world. But what intrigues me most about this song is that there's 7 different artists featured on the song plus you. How does that even happen?
Oh my God, I'm honestly still trying to figure it out myself. Man, Ruled the World, when we started writing it, I know for a fact that none of us in the writing room knew what we were getting ourselves into. I'll never forget, we started writing the song, and one of the co-writers, Zach Crow, who is also a co-producer on the song, came in one day and he said, guys, there's this old rap song that I know of that talks about what they would do if they ruled the world for the day. We should write the country boy version of that song. And so we're all kind of intrigued at that moment. And I'll never forget, I can't remember who said it, but someone said, okay, well, if I ruled the world, Charlie Daniels' Devil Went Down to Georgia would be our new national anthem. And we immediately just died laughing at that thought. And we thought, okay, that's the right headspace. What if it's all of the extremes? And so we started writing it, and we felt like the chorus was supposed to be about a guy and a girl, and in a perfect world, if the guy had it his way, he would, have the girl in his truck, and, they'd, ride back roads every night. But we found that the verses wasn't really supporting that. And so we decided to get back together with fresh ears and fresh eyes and relook at it. And when we did, we found out, we said, okay, well, this isn't really meant to be like a relationship song. This is just supposed to be just an anthem for country boys and country girls. And if they had it their way, this is what they would do. And so when we got back together to write, Hunter Phelps, who was featured on the song, me and Hunter are singing the lines back and forth for the scratch vocal. And so Zach is recording us, and, we're just kind of passing the mic back and forth. And when Zach sends us the rough of the song, I'll never forget, I'm driving down the road, and I sing the first line, and then Hunter sings the second line, and then it goes back to me. And I just had this immediate thought of like, wow, what if this was like a multiple artist featured song? So I called the writers, and they all loved the idea. And we actually had pitched it to Dustin Lynch, and Dustin had came and put a vocal on it. And we were going to try to let Dustin record it and get, FGL and Cole and Thomas Rhett and all these guys, on the song. Well, it turned out to where it was almost too complicated, and the labels got involved, and they were like, well, who's going to own what percentage of this and, that, and it just got to be just kind of too much red tape, and it kind of killed the funness of it. And so that got shot down, and then, we pitched around to a couple more artists, and everyone loved the idea and the thought, but it was just kind of just like, okay, well, I love that, but I don't know how that's going to, work and, realistically, and, who's going to own what part. And I just couldn't get that thought out of my head. And so I'm laying in bed, one night, and I just keep thinking about it, and I'm thinking, man, what if I'm meant to put this out? And being an independent artist now, where I have built a career off of being an independent with no label help and just straight organic fan growth, and to now have, some of the best numbers in Nashville, I just thought, well, what if I shed light on some up and comers that are sort of in my position? And so we decided to call some guys and girls that I felt like was sort of the next wave of country music, and man, we put it together. And then in the video we had Shenandoah and Tracy Lawrence and Aaron Tippin all sort of become cameos in the video, and so it was just something that just kept evolving from day one. And again, I think it just ended up the way that it was supposed to end up. We just, just kept moving and kept molding from the day one.
Well, and I mean, you look at who's on this album, and it almost looks like you took what you learned when you were writing with, Cole Swindell and writing with Florida Georgia Line and that whole group, with Luke Bryan and all of that, and you kind of flipped that on its head, where you were the little brother, and now you're that guy out there that's leading guys like Cash Campbell and Drew Parker and Hunter Phelps and Mitch Rossell and Ray Fulcher. I mean, that is not too bad of a lineup to throw on one song.
Yeah, I know for a fact, how much Cole and guys like Dustin Lynch and all these people have meant so much to my career, and how much they've helped me, whether they've recorded my songs or they've let me come open for them. And so, like I said, I've always sort of been a guy that I wanted to pass the torch, and this was sort of a way that I felt like I could do it, in my own little way. And so, yeah, man, I mean, I think all of those guys, their individual careers are very healthy. They've got great numbers, but when you add all of us together, it just sort of becomes this machine of like, wow, we could rival anyone in the business, because we collectively are just as big as anyone in our format. And so that was sort of the goal behind it all. But then also I wanted to do it because it was so fun. We had so much, fun recording it and shooting the video, and we did it because we could do it, and we didn't have to worry about labels sort of telling us that we couldn't do it. And to me, that's what music's all about, is when it's fun and, doing it for the love of it, and not, well, we can't do it because of this reason or that reason, or, whatever, and too much logistics sort of get in the way. And so I was just able, I was glad that I was able to be, the guy that sort of, led that rally, because I think all of us are going to benefit from it. And I think now more than ever, independent artists have a bigger voice than they ever have.
Well, and I think so. And I probably had 6 or 8 different people that sent me this song the day that it dropped. And they're like, hey, have you heard of this person or this person or this person or this one? Or have you heard this song? And it's one of those things where, somebody that's a Ray Fulcher fan might not be a Cash Campbell fan or might not be an Adam Sanders fan, but by throwing them all on one record, it's almost like a marketing piece on top of just a fun song.
Yeah, I mean, that was totally the goal of this whole thing, of like, hey, we could all sort of cross-pollinate in our own careers, and now the goal is for everyone to sort of take what they gained from the song and go run with it, and use it to benefit their careers. And so, in the next releases of Ray's or Cash's or, Farron's or whoever, I hope that they get a bigger spotlight because of this particular song that they were a part of, where, they may have gotten a few of my fans, or I may have gotten some of their fans, and so I think it's all, that's the beauty about country music too, is I think, it's such a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I go back to the days where, we were doing the Saturday Song Day, and how much we championed each other, and I sort of missed that, and I felt like this was a way that I could do that again, and bring up some sort of that next wave.
Well, here, let's let everybody take a listen to it. Hopefully a few people that haven't heard it before. This one's called Ruled the World by Adam Sanders and, heck, all of his friends.
Hey, Adam.
What's up?
How many rednecks you think it takes to make a country song?
Shoot, I don't know, but we about to find out. Turn this thing up. If I ruled the world, you could deer hunt 365 all night and all day. Everybody'd have a jumbo docked and a largemouth stocked on a pond or lake.
Your diesel'd be a whole lot cheaper, and grain would go through the roof. I'd put a stop to chopping down pine trees, but y'all, that ain't all I do.
I'd cut a dirt road right through the middle of New York City to LA.
We'd be cold beer sipping, 6-string ticket every night on the tailgate. There'd be a lot more kissing and a lot more loving. Sweet tea'd be a little more sweet.
Yeah, beer drinking, truck driving, boot wearing boy like me ruled the world. That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, where we at? Second verse.
I put the White House out on 100 acres, about 50 yards from the creek.
I'd make a law that the local law couldn't break up a party till 3. Every town would get a brand new Bass Pro, buy a duck call, get one free.
And every four-wheel drive off a Detroit line would have a lift and some 33. I'd cut a dirt road right through the middle of New York City to LA. We'd be cold beer sipping, six-string picking every night on the tailgate. There'd be a lot more kissing and a lot more loving. Sweet tea be a little more sweet. Yeah, for beer drinking, truck driving, boot wearing boy like me. Rule the world.
Shoot, y'all, I think we about got this thing licked. But I know that ain't all y'all can think of. So what else you got?
Grass would be a little more green, neck should be a little more redder.
Oh, yeah, they would.
Lord knows we sure got it good right now.
Y'all at home get a little bit better. Yeah, I cut a dirt road right through the middle of New York City to LA.
We'd be cold beer sipping, six-string picking every night on the tailgate. There'd be a lot more kissing and a lot more loving. Sweet tea be a little more sweet.
Yeah, beer drinking,
Truck driving, boots in them wore out jeans. Yeah, thistle hat tipping, dirt digging.
Good old girl like me.
Rule the world.
Boys, I swear the whole world would have a front porch wrapped all the way around it.
Yeah, we'd all go George straight down to the dive bar one time.
y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, we'd all be Aaron tipping them back if it was up to me.
And that one was called Ruled the World by Adam Sanders, with help from some of his friends, including a former Tea Party podcast guest in Mitch Rossell and a future guest that I'm not going to let anybody name. That's called the tease for all of you out there wondering. But Adam, what do you have coming up in 2020?
Man, we are super excited. We're going to be hitting the road again, and as soon as all this Corona stuff gets out of the way, we'll be back touring, and we have plans to do a headline tour this fall. And, you know, everyone always asks, Adam, when are you going to release an album? When are you going to release an album? And our landscape and the way we consume music is just so different these days, and we're working on an idea where we could be releasing a full album, but maybe in a little bit of a different capacity instead of just your, sort of standard studio album. So I'm really, really excited about what we're working on there. So new music, touring, all of it. It's going to be a very, very big year for me.
Well, and how can people keep up on that? What are your social media handles, your website, all that?
Easy, man. Just search Adam Sanders, not to be confused with Adam Sandler, Sanders. Yeah, so, man, all the social media sites, the website, just, you pretty much just type in Adam Sanders and find anything you want.
Perfect. Well, and we'll make sure that that's all linked in the bio of this podcast. But before we let you go and get you down the road a little bit further towards Cole Swindell's house, we end every show the same way. It's called the Final Four, and it's probably the four toughest questions that I'm going to ask you this whole time, just because it makes you think, okay?
All right.
Okay, here we go.
I'm a little hungover, so go easy on me.
Okay, here we go. The first one, if you could go on tour with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be?
Man, I honestly, like, the little kid in me is screaming Alan Jackson because he was, sort of my hero. So
I probably
would
could have
to
guessed
say
that
Alan
one,
Jackson.
I think.
Yep.
Okay, how about this one? Where were you and who were you with the first time that you heard yourself on the radio?
Man, well, I remember, let's see. I put out a song when I was in high school, and my local radio station played it, and I was with a couple friends of mine at their apartment complex, and we listened in my truck, and that was a very special moment. I think I was like 16 years old at that point, but back in my hometown of Lake City.
See, that's got to be pretty cool, sitting in your truck with your friends and like, hey, here it comes.
Yeah, I grew up in a pretty small town, and we had one radio station, one country station, and so I knew a couple of the DJs, and went in and gave them a CD, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll put it in rotation," and so that was very, very cool. It was a song called "The Dream," actually, which was actually talking about moving to Nashville, ironically.
Hey, I feel like that one worked out for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this one? Who is your favorite artist that you've ever opened up for?
Ooh, that is a tough one.
I told you it's tough. Don't get yourself in trouble now.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna say Eric Church. I got to open for Eric in Charlotte, North Carolina, several years back. I don't know if you remember this, but Eric did he did like 7 or 8 shows in like 24 hours or something. And he was just sort of flying into all these places, and I was the guy opening for him in Charlotte, and so that was sort of a dream come true. I grew up on, listening to his music, and I'm such a fan of his writing, and a guy that I feel like is just, sort of a triple threat. He can sing them, write them, and play them, and so I would say probably Eric Church.
That's a good pick. So that means that you must be just as excited as I am for this album that he threw together in 28 days in the middle of nowhere.
I'm excited. That guy's always coming out with some kind of, some sort of surprise, whether it's, touring or an album or whatever. He's always got something up his sleeve.
Okay, here we go. Last one. What's your favorite on-stage memory?
Favorite on-stage memory? Me and Cole played a show together in Rome, Georgia, and it was on my birthday. And I had opened for Cole. It's so crazy. On that show, it was Old Dominion, John Party, myself, and Cole. And Old Dominion was the very first opener for all of us. And so if you flip it today, they're probably the headliner, and I'm the opener for all of it. And so I played the show, and Cole brought me back out to sing Ain't Worth the Whiskey with him on stage, and I think, man, there was roughly, 10,000-12,000 people, and he got the whole crowd to sing Happy Birthday to me on stage. That was a very special moment to be on stage with one of my best friends, singing a song that we wrote together that was my first number one, and to have 10,000 people singing Happy Birthday to me was very, very special.
That's got to be really cool. Well, Adam, man, thank you so much for jumping on here. Thank you for taking the time, and have a safe trip down to Georgia, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me, and hope to chat with you again soon.
Definitely. We'll definitely have to do this again in the future. And that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's the country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Adam Sanders and rule the world.